Hello everyone, this is Mr. Jackson, and today we're going to be kicking off our conversation over the digestive system. We're going to be taking this in two parts, so let's go ahead and start part one. So we're going to just cover the overview today of the digestive system and the process of digestion. So what do we mean whenever we're talking about that? So the function of this system is basically converting the food that we eat into the energy and raw materials that we can then use to build and fuel our bodies. Okay, so macromolecules in our food are ultimately going to be broken down by this system, and that could be mechanically or chemically. We'll look into both, and we're going to break those down into their most simple parts. And in those most simple parts, that's the way in which we're able to use the components of what's in the food that we eat. So we can then absorb into our blood and transport those simple parts via our capillaries and the rest of our blood vessels to wherever those nutrients are needed in the body, to any of the cells and tissues that need those little parts to continue doing the work that they are doing or building the things that they are building. You have some main structures that are a part of this system. They make up what we call our alimentary canal, or more commonly referred to as your gastrointestinal or GI tract. And you can see these labeled here and on the right side. This canal is a hollow muscular tube all the way from mouth to anus that digests and absorbs our food. So some major players here that it includes your mouth, pharynx, esophagus, your stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine. Supporting that as accessory structures are going to be your teeth, your tongue, the salivary glands in your mouth, the gallbladder, liver, and pancreas. Okay, so you have the main structures, which are a part of this hollow muscular tube all the way from mouth to anus as listed, and then you have those support cast structures as we just labeled as well, all of them playing very, very vital parts in basically breaking down the foods that you eat in order to use those component pieces to build and create energy. Now, the digestive process is basically going to be broken down into 6 main steps, okay, some of which happen simultaneously and can happen in multiple different structures at once, okay. This is basically, you can call it the disassembly line, right? So we're taking those big food items that we take in, all of those really large molecules, those macromolecules, and we're breaking them down into their component parts so that they can then be used, okay. So we're going to actually break down all 6 of these and define them, but it's important while we're here to identify what they are as well as where they're happening. So in the mouth, we are going to have what we call ingestion. Okay, so we're going to ingest or to take this food in. We then are going to have multiple organs along that GI tract all working cooperatively to do propulsion or propelling the food along that GI tract, mechanically breaking down those food items, chemically digesting or chemically breaking down those food items, and then absorbing those broken down smallest fundamental parts of what we've just broken down. And then finally, only in the large intestine, we have the act of defecation, and this is where we're going to basically remove anything that was not used that we would consider to be waste. So let's break those down in a little bit more detail, and then that will conclude part 1. So step 1, ingestion, aka eating. Okay, so we're actually taking food in. Now, during ingestion, you have those accessory structures, those teeth that can begin mechanical breakdown whenever we chew our food and we break it down into more manageable chunks. And then you have your salivary glands, which also help to begin chemical digestion by releasing enzymes that will actually start digesting the starches if there are starches in your food. So digestion does not actually have to go down any further to begin. We will begin the process of digestion right there at ingestion in the mouth. Okay, step 2 is propulsion. This is basically the movement of food through your GI tract. This is going to start with the voluntary swallowing of what we call a bolus. This is just basically a mass of the broken down, chewed up, saliva included food that you've just taken in. Okay, so it starts with voluntary swallowing. And then you're going to continue with this involuntary process called peristalsis. And so this is referring to that contraction and relaxation of the smooth muscles in the esophagus, the stomach, the intestines, and basically this contraction and then relaxation along that canal is what helps to propel food in one direction forward along that GI tract. So ingestion, taking the food in, and then once we swallow that food, we're going to move it along via a process called peristalsis. We're going to have further physical breakdown of food to basically help to increase surface area. And this is going to help with absorption. And it's going to also help to mix all of those food particles with other enzymes that can help with chemical digestion. So you've got ongoing breakdown. And then off of that chemical digestion, you have these secreted enzymes that are specifically there to help chemically break down food into their most simple parts so that we're able to absorb them into the blood, right? We can expect that we can take those smallest parts into our bloodstream and then circulate those and transport them to the cells that need them. And so chemical digestion is a necessary part of being able to make that happen. And then we've got absorption still in that GI tract. Absorption is basically the transport of the end result of all of that digested food, right? So all of the mechanical breakdown and the chemical breakdown, we will now be able to transport those most simple forms from the food that we eat through the walls of the GI tract and into the blood or the lymph, and that can then be transported throughout the entire body to any tissues or cells that need those nutrients. So these monomers, these most simple forms like vitamins, minerals, and those individual molecules will then be used for cellular respiration in cells or whatever other process is going on at the time to help build the things your cells need. And then finally, only in the large intestine, you've got this last process of defecation, which is just basically eliminating any indigestible substances or waste products through the anus as feces. Okay? And so that's a good overview of what the digestive system is and what digestion is as a process. And in order to explore the actual key players, right, either those main anatomical organs of the alimentary canal or those support structure casts that are helping with digestion, we're going to go back to those discovery stations where we're going to be looking at individual parts as stations and building an understanding of how they all contribute to this process of being able to break down the foods that we eat so that we can make them usable anywhere in the body as we need them for energy or building whatever the body requires. So that's all for part 1, and we will see you in the next one.